They came from the far reaches of space, from a planet bathed in crimson light where the air was thick with metallic dust, and the winds howled across barren deserts. These beings, the Zarnathians, were the ruling species of an ancient empire that spanned dozens of galaxies. Towering and lean, their skin gleamed like polished metal, and their eyes were cold, devoid of warmth or mercy. They communicated in a series of high-pitched clicks, yet their thoughts were in sync, interwoven by a neural network that allowed them to act as one. This unity made them powerful, almost unbeatable, and their warriors moved in perfect precision, operating like the limbs of a single, unbreakable organism. Their culture had evolved around one concept: domination. In the Zarnathian worldview, lesser species existed solely to serve or be destroyed. They prided themselves on their strength, their technological superiority, and their single-minded pursuit of power. For centuries, they had expanded relentlessly, assimilating planets or wiping out those who resisted. They believed themselves to be the universe's natural rulers, viewing other civilizations as mere stepping stones on their path to omnipotence. Every conquest was a testament to their collective strength. Each species they subjugated served as evidence of their supremacy. Their technology was nothing short of astounding, powered by energy sources most civilizations couldn't comprehend. Their ships were sleek and silent, moving through space like shadows, and their weapons could reduce entire cities to rubble in seconds. They boasted force fields that repelled any known projectile, beams of energy that could slice through asteroids, and cybernetic enhancements that made each Zarnathian soldier faster, stronger, and more lethal. To them, the idea of losing a battle was almost laughable. Every encounter had only reinforced their belief in their invincibility. When the Zarnathians detected signs of human civilization, they were at first intrigued. A small, blue-green planet, Earth held unusual biodiversity, with an environment teeming with countless life forms. It was a stark contrast to their own desolate world. The Zarnathian High Council assessed the planet from afar, scanning its technology, probing its energy output, studying its defenses. What they saw confirmed their assumptions. Humans were primitive. Their weapons were laughably basic, their structures flimsy, and their soldiers unenhanced and disorganized. The Zarnathians observed Earth's nations as they fought each other, split by borders and ideologies, and saw no unified front, no collective strength. Humanity, they concluded, would crumble within days of their arrival. They considered Earth's resources ripe for the taking. Its lush forests, oceans, and mineral-rich mountains presented an opportunity to replenish their empire. But even more than the resources, they were drawn to the idea of conquest itself. For the Zarnathians, domination was not just a strategy. It was a duty, a demonstration of their power, and a reminder to the galaxy of their unassailable might. Earth would fall, just like all the others, and humanity would be reduced to a footnote in the Zarnathian Empire's grand history. There was a level of excitement within the ranks. To them, this was more of a ritual exercise than a true invasion. Lower-level commanders spoke of the operation as if it were a game, betting on how long it would take before humans would surrender. Soldiers anticipated the satisfaction of crushing resistance and establishing a new outpost on Earth, a symbol of their ever-expanding reach. They prepared for the invasion with an air of certainty, programming automated drones, charging weapons, and finalizing strategies that had worked countless times before. There was, however, one thing that puzzled them. Humans were creatures of contradiction. They observed recordings of humans exhibiting fierce loyalty to one another, risking their lives in conflicts, or displaying uncanny resilience in adverse conditions. Certain commanders, ever meticulous, brought up reports of human survival against extreme odds, accounts of endurance that exceeded logical expectations. Yet, these details were dismissed as anomalies, quirks of a lesser species. Humans, after all, were not a unified force. They lacked the hive mind, the technological mastery, and the combat precision that defined the Zarnathians. The Council remained resolute in their belief. Humans were fragile, individualistic, and undisciplined, a species that had spread across its planet but lacked the unity needed to face a true threat. On the eve of the invasion, the Zarnathian fleet gathered above Earth, an armada of ships forming an ominous constellation in the sky. Each vessel was a marvel of engineering, sleek and dark, bristling with weapons. Their strategy was straightforward and time-tested. Descend quickly, strike key points, and disable any communication or military coordination before the humans could react. They planned to overwhelm Earth's defenses in a display of sheer force, to crush any organized response before it could begin. The Zarnathian commanders barely entertained the notion of a prolonged engagement. They expected Earth's resistance to last no longer than a matter of hours. As the ships hovered in low orbit, cloaked by advanced shielding technology, the Zarnathians monitored Earth's communications. They intercepted signals, analyzing them with interest and slight amusement. The humans were going about their daily lives, oblivious to the armada above them. Some spoke of peace and exploration, others of division and conflict. Yet none seemed to anticipate the threat that loomed in the sky. To the Zarnathians, this lack of awareness confirmed humanity's inferiority. They viewed this as proof that humans were unworthy of consideration, barely worthy of record in the Empire's archives. With a collective click of approval, the invasion was set into motion. Zarnathian soldiers donned their armor, each plate fitting perfectly over their metallic skin, enhancing their already formidable strength and speed. They loaded their weapons, calibrated their targeting systems, and synced their neural connections to the fleet's central intelligence, each soldier ready to act as a part of the greater whole. They moved with a cold, unfeeling efficiency that only an empire bred on domination could possess. Yet, just as the final countdown began, an elder commander paused, looking at the blue planet below. For a fleeting moment, he wondered if they had underestimated these creatures, if perhaps there was something more to these humans than what their scans had revealed. He dismissed the thought almost as quickly as it came. His superiors would scoff at such hesitation, and so he pushed it aside, hardening himself for the mission. In the last moments before deployment, a sense of anticipation crackled through the fleet. They envisioned Earth's cities falling, its people surrendering, its resources seized and cataloged for the Empire. As the descent began, the Zarnathians were confident, as they had always been, that this invasion would be another swift victory. Yet, what they did not realize was that the humans they so readily dismissed were far from ordinary prey. The Zarnathians had seen the technology, the weaponry, the fractured politics, but they hadn't seen the spirit that lay hidden beneath the surface. They hadn't seen what happened when humans were pushed to their limits. As the Zarnathians initiated their invasion, descending upon Earth with the certainty of victory, they were unaware that they were about to face a force they had never encountered, one that didn't just fight back, but did so with an intensity and adaptability beyond anything they had faced before. As the first ships broke through the atmosphere, a quiet but unmistakable defiance stirred across Earth. The Zarnathian ships entered Earth's atmosphere with the precision of a knife slicing through fabric, the friction of entry barely registering against their advanced hulls. They dispersed over key strategic areas, hovering above cities, military bases, and communication hubs with cold indifference. Across the globe, people looked up in shock, witnessing the massive vessels blotting out the sky, their sleek surfaces absorbing sunlight like the dark skin of predatory beasts. The ship's seamless descent showed the Zarnathians' complete disregard for stealth. They didn't need it, they thought. In their minds, Earth's defenses would be no more challenging than scattering an ant colony. Almost instantly, human military forces scrambled. Radar and communication channels crackled to life as reports of the invaders spread like wildfire. In makeshift command centers, orders were shouted, maps lit up, and every available unit mobilized. A coalition of nations quickly pooled their resources, deploying troops from diverse military backgrounds, Air Force pilots, seasoned infantry, and specialized tactical squads. In cities, local law enforcement and emergency services coordinated to keep civilians safe, transforming crowded streets into potential battle zones. The Zarnathian commanders observed this flurry of activity with amusement. Watching the humans' attempts to organize and defend, they detected chaos, a lack of the coordinated unity they prized in their own kind. They saw human resistance as fragmented, their soldiers outgunned and ill-prepared. Confident in their superiority, the Zarnathians didn't deploy their full forces. Instead, they sent out a small detachment to engage the humans, eager to observe these creatures' capabilities, or lack thereof, before committing to a more extensive attack. In a remote desert outpost, a group of human soldiers caught the first wave. They had positioned themselves hastily, finding cover in sand dunes and behind scattered rocks, with their weapons aimed at the sleek figures advancing across the horizon. The Zarnathians moved in disciplined, unhurried lines, their armor gleaming under the sun, weapons at the ready. This was just another exercise for them, an easy victory. The soldiers braced themselves, steadying their nerves, fingers hovering over triggers, even as they knew the odds weren't in their favor. The first skirmish was brutal and swift. Human bullets barely scratched the Zarnathians' advanced armor, ricocheting harmlessly as the aliens unleashed concentrated beams of energy that tore through cover and flesh alike. The human soldiers fought back with everything they had, calling in air support, lobbing grenades, and deploying whatever heavy artillery was on hand. But each effort seemed almost futile, their weapons outdated and ineffective against the Zarnathians' technology. Within minutes, the battlefield was silent save for the hum of alien machinery and the whispers of desert wind over the fallen. The Zarnathians recorded every detail of the encounter, marking it as another success, though they couldn't help but notice a few things that piqued their interest. Despite being outmatched, the humans had fought with an intensity that seemed out of proportion to their situation. Injured soldiers dragged their comrades to safety, even under heavy fire. Some had charged forward, firing until their last breath, their faces set with grim determination. A handful had managed to evade capture entirely, vanishing into the sand with surprising stealth, using the terrain to their advantage. The Zarnathian detachment commanders noted these actions, intrigued by the humans' audacity, yet dismissive of their ultimate impact. They were still, after all, just humans, a minor inconvenience, a brief irritation. Meanwhile, back in the Zarnathian command vessel orbiting the planet, the officers reviewed the results with detached satisfaction. Reports were analyzed, tactics recalibrated, yet no one seemed particularly concerned. They had encountered many civilizations that fought back, often with moments of unexpected vigor, before their inevitable defeat. One of the high-ranking strategists remarked that the humans seemed unusually reckless, prone to irrational bravery that made them predictable. Another officer suggested it was merely their survival instincts manifesting in chaotic ways. To the Zarnathians, such behavior was primitive, a far cry from their own disciplined responses. On the ground, however, the human response was anything but predictable. News of the initial losses spread quickly, but instead of creating fear, it ignited a spark. Military strategists and intelligence analysts from around the world began to exchange information, devising countermeasures. High-ranking officials recognized that brute force alone wouldn't work against such technologically advanced invaders. In dimly lit war rooms, a plan began to take shape, one focused on asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and the use of unconventional strategies. The humans couldn't match the Zarnathians' technology, but they could make up for it with ingenuity, resilience, and unpredictability. Elsewhere, the Zarnathian scouts continued to advance, encountering small pockets of human resistance in towns and cities. Each encounter yielded similar results. Quick victories for the Zarnathians, albeit with strange human behaviors cropping up again and again. They notice humans using the urban landscape to their advantage, turning alleyways, rooftops, and even sewers into hiding spots, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could regroup. Despite their losses, the humans were learning, adapting. Every time the Zarnathians won a skirmish, they observed subtle shifts in human tactics, as though the humans were analyzing each encounter as carefully as the aliens themselves. In one instance, a small team of human soldiers trapped a group of Zarnathian warriors in a network of underground tunnels. Despite being poorly armed, the humans maneuvered expertly, setting traps and using explosives to disorient the alien soldiers, striking fast and vanishing into the shadows. By the time the Zarnathians extricated themselves, they had lost several units and wasted precious resources. To their frustration, they found the humans frustratingly resilient, uncowed by fear or intimidation, seemingly willing to sacrifice everything to protect their world. The Zarnathians regrouped and recalibrated, reporting these encounters back to their command. Among the ranks, murmurs of surprise and mild annoyance circulated. Some of the more junior officers dismissed the humans as pests, like resilient vermin who simply took longer to crush. Higher up the chain, however, there was a growing awareness that the humans were more tenacious than anticipated. They adapted quickly, fought fiercely, and displayed an almost reckless disregard for their own lives, traits that the Zarnathians found incomprehensible yet increasingly irritating. In their arrogance, the Zarnathians overlooked a crucial element: humanity's capacity to adapt under pressure, to innovate in the face of insurmountable odds. Each skirmish, each tactical adjustment, revealed to humans more about their enemy's weaknesses, even as the Zarnathians continued to view them as inferior beings. The Zarnathians discussed this stubborn resistance in private, convinced it was only a matter of time before humans broke. To them, human persistence was nothing more than a minor obstacle, a delay in what they assumed would be an inevitable victory. But beneath that assumption, a subtle unease began to grow, though none were willing to admit it. Humans were not reacting as other species had. They seemed to thrive on opposition, as if each encounter hardened them, made them sharper, more focused. Some Zarnathian soldiers who had survived encounters with human forces reported feeling as though they were being hunted rather than the other way around, as if the humans were studying them, learning their patterns, even predicting their next moves. As the humans continued to resist, the Zarnathians remained confident, but cracks in that confidence were beginning to show. Humans, these creatures that they deemed no more than an inconvenience, were proving difficult to contain, harder to crush than anticipated. There was a persistent, nagging sense that something vital had been missed, something about humanity that didn't fit the profile they created. They were determined to ignore it, to press forward with their invasion as planned. But for the first time, a few among the Zarnathians wondered if they had underestimated their prey. The Zarnathians pushed deeper into human territory, expecting the same swift victories they'd enjoyed in the initial encounters. With each advancing step, they treated the operation with growing impatience, eager to get past this diversion and move on to conquering Earth in full. They barely adjusted their tactics, trusting their technology and unity to overpower anything the humans could mount. As they neared larger human settlements, their arrogance only grew. Their commanders predicted nothing more than a scattered resistance, a few scattered forces easily dismantled with minimal effort. However, the humans had shifted their approach. Instead of direct confrontations, they used the environment itself to lay traps. In dense forests, soldiers had rigged trees to fall, blocking paths and breaking up the aliens' cohesive formations. In deserts and mountain passes, they set off explosions to create landslides and choke points. Even in cities, they exploited narrow alleys, subway tunnels, and abandoned buildings, making it nearly impossible for the Zarnathians to maintain their rigid formations. The aliens found themselves funneled into narrow spaces where their large numbers became a disadvantage, reducing their field of vision and movement. This new tactic was disorienting to the Zarnathians. They were accustomed to a more direct approach to warfare, where force was met with greater force. But these humans seemed to avoid open battle entirely, striking from the shadows before melting away. Guerrilla tactics came as a shock. Small groups of human soldiers attacked quickly, using hit-and-run maneuvers, and then vanished before the aliens could react. At first, the Zarnathians dismissed these as minor disruptions, but soon they realized the attacks weren't random. The humans were coordinated and precise, choosing weak spots with uncanny accuracy and exploiting every vulnerability. Each ambush left alien troops scattered, wounded, and more unsettled. The Zarnathian commanders grew frustrated, unable to predict the humans' next move. In one operation, as alien forces advanced through a ravine, human soldiers detonated hidden charges, causing a rockslide that decimated the alien convoy. Those who survived were left isolated, cut off from reinforcements, and without reliable communications as the humans jammed their signals. The Zarnathians hadn't considered humans capable of such calculated maneuvers, and with each new engagement, they were forced to confront the humans' adaptability. Psychological warfare soon became a key component of the human strategy. They broadcasted false signals to lure Zarnathian forces into traps or played recordings of alien distress signals over commandeered communication frequencies, leading soldiers into empty ambush zones that further drained their morale. Human soldiers left symbols and markings on the walls of abandoned buildings, subtle taunts meant to rattle the aliens' confidence. In one particularly eerie encounter, Zarnathian forces entered what appeared to be an abandoned urban area only to find human soldiers lying in wait. In the ensuing ambush, the Zarnathians suffered heavy casualties, and those who survived felt as though they were being hunted rather than hunting. It was a calculated, relentless assault on both their minds and bodies, and it was working. Zarnathian commanders, once dismissive of human tactics, began to worry. The humans weren't predictable prey. They adapted quickly, turned their weaknesses into strengths, and fought with a level of cunning and endurance the Zarnathians had rarely seen. The reports pouring in were disturbing. Human ingenuity allowed them to repurpose even the most primitive resources into lethal threats. They rigged industrial machinery as improvised weapons, turned city infrastructure into a defensive web, and weaponized everything from fuel supplies to environmental hazards. Alien scouts reported humans fighting with equipment salvaged from alien wrecks, using stolen Zarnathian technology against them with surprising skill. Human engineers had reverse-engineered alien weaponry to suit their needs, adding an element of surprise that further unsettled the invaders. For the Zarnathians, every victory felt increasingly Pyrrhic. Each time they advanced, they lost more troops than anticipated, facing situations that strained their once unquestioned confidence. Their forces started to spread thin as human forces expertly harassed their supply lines, disrupting shipments of weapons and resources, striking where they were least expected. Alien commanders were forced to divert significant numbers of troops to secure these vulnerable points, draining their main forces and reducing the firepower available for their main push. Their frustration soon turned to a quiet fear. The humans were nothing like the species they had conquered before. These weren't mere primitives with limited comprehension. They were survivalists, able to adapt to any threat, driven by an unyielding will to defend their home. In one significant encounter, a Zarnathian detachment managed to capture a group of human soldiers. The captured humans were weary but unbroken, showing a defiance that confused the Zarnathians. One Zarnathian officer asked, through a translator, why they continued to fight when the odds were against them. A human soldier replied with a hardened look, saying simply, "We don't know how to give up." It was a phrase the officer couldn't fully understand, but couldn't shake from his mind. The reality was sinking in. Humans weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting as if their survival was a matter of pride, as if surrender were something they couldn't consider. This drive, this refusal to yield, was beyond the Zarnathians' comprehension, yet it was undeniably effective. Reports circulated among the alien ranks that human forces were now organizing an even larger counterattack, a concerted effort to drive the invaders back. Some junior officers suggested caution, even a strategic retreat, but the senior commanders dismissed it. Admitting weakness was out of the question. Their empire's pride demanded complete control over this planet. But doubt lingered in the ranks, a shadow cast over their formerly ironclad resolve. Their confidence had fractured, replaced by a growing awareness that their enemy was as relentless as any predator. For every human they defeated, 10 more seemed to rise, each one adapting to the tactics that had once dominated them. For the first time, Zarnathian officers began to fear they had vastly misjudged their enemy. They'd expected humanity to crumble, but instead, they were facing a foe that rose stronger from every encounter. Alien commanders, once certain of their superiority, found themselves uncertain and wary, adjusting plans and reviewing battle strategies that had never failed before, but now seemed dangerously insufficient. The humans were relentless, as if something within them had been awakened by the invasion, an ancient instinct that turned their desperation into a weapon. The Zarnathians, who had come to view themselves as the galaxy's apex predators, now faced a species that fought with a ferocity they had never anticipated. This was no mere resistance. It was a coordinated, calculated response, led by a people who were not only defending their home but showing the aliens a brutal truth. Humans were not prey. The Zarnathians' confidence was now a distant memory, replaced by a gnawing fear that gnawed at even their most hardened commanders. With each attempt to push forward, they encountered human forces whose resilience was beyond comprehension. Alien soldiers who'd once laughed off human primitivism now whispered among themselves about the terrifying endurance of these people. Human soldiers continued fighting even with grievous injuries, their bodies beaten, but their determination unbroken. Reports flooded in from across Earth's continents, accounts of humans who wouldn't stop, who fought on with an intensity that seemed endless, a collective willpower that defied all logic. In one battle near a rural village, Zarnathian forces expected an easy takeover, believing no civilians would resist a force like theirs. But as they advanced, they encountered fierce opposition not just from human soldiers, but from the community itself. Civilians, farmers, and townsfolk armed themselves with whatever they could find, creating a defense that delayed the alien forces long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The Zarnathians were caught off guard, horrified to find that Earth's inhabitants saw the invasion not as an isolated event, but as a personal assault, one that every person, young and old, felt compelled to resist. This was no scattered, panicked mob. It was a coordinated defense effort, ordinary citizens fighting with the resolve of seasoned warriors. The humans' ability to adapt Zarnathian technology had also become a game-changer. Mechanics and engineers in secret underground bunkers worked around the clock, dissecting captured alien weapons, reverse engineering them, and even improving upon them. Alien plasma weapons, modified for human use, began to appear on the battlefield. Human forces had also managed to hack into alien communication frequencies, intercepting plans and disrupting troop movements with carefully timed counterattacks. The Zarnathians found themselves facing a near mirror of their own technology, wielded by an enemy who seemed to know every weakness in their systems, every flaw in their designs. Now, wherever the Zarnathians went, they faced opposition so unified it was as though the entire planet itself was mobilized against them. Human military forces from every nation, old rivals who had set aside their differences, had created a global alliance to defend their shared home. Every branch of every army operated in lockstep, coordinating strikes across every continent. No matter how many times the Zarnathians struck, they met resistance that was organized, disciplined, and frighteningly synchronized. Alien Command watched in disbelief as they saw a species who, only days ago, seemed primitive and fractured, now moving as one organism with a single mission: to eliminate the invaders. This was no longer about individual skirmishes or territory. It had become an existential struggle, one where every human, whether soldier or civilian, had adopted the mindset of a warrior defending a home they would not abandon. Their tactics were brutal and unyielding, designed to sap the enemy's strength bit by bit, until nothing remained of their morale or manpower. Every battle cost the Zarnathians dearly, as the humans struck with a lethal efficiency that was nothing short of terrifying. The Zarnathians' internal communication channels, once filled with reports of minor resistance and rapid conquest, now carried messages of urgent distress. Commanders who'd once spoken of Earth's inhabitants as inferior beings now sent desperate calls for reinforcements and supplies. They were losing ground, literally and psychologically. Soldiers who had once laughed at the thought of fighting humans now dreaded each engagement, knowing that they would face enemies who would not stop, who would sacrifice anything, and who understood their weaknesses all too well. Alien squads sent into heavily defended zones returned shattered, if they returned at all, recounting stories of humans who fought with an almost animalistic fury, as if something primal had been awakened within them. These humans knew the land, knew how to turn the environment into a weapon, and knew how to exploit every weakness in the alien ranks. Stories circulated among the Zarnathian soldiers about humans who seemed to sense fear, striking at the exact moments of weakness, harrying them with ambushes, traps, and diversions. Alien morale plummeted. For every Zarnathian soldier that fell, the humans' resolve seemed to grow stronger, their tactics evolving, each engagement informing the next. The humans were not simply surviving, they were hunting, and for the first time, the Zarnathians knew what it was to feel hunted. Inside the command centers, high-ranking Zarnathian strategists, formerly so confident in their empire's power, now faced a grim realization. The humans were more than stubborn survivors. They were apex predators, a species bred by centuries of conflict, ingenuity, and adaptability. The Zarnathians had heard tales of predators in Earth's ecosystem, animals who hunted with intelligence and determination, creatures who, once focused on a target, would stop at nothing until they succeeded. It dawned on the alien commanders that they were facing that very same instinct on a species-wide level. They'd underestimated Earth's dominant life form not just as soldiers, but as a force of nature that had evolved to thrive in hardship, to overcome obstacles, and to fight without hesitation when faced with annihilation. The breaking point came during one of the largest battles of the invasion, a coordinated strike across multiple urban centers where human forces used their newfound mastery of alien weaponry, combined with their knowledge of the terrain, to launch a full-scale counteroffensive. They struck from every angle, appearing in unexpected locations, overwhelming the alien forces with a relentless assault. The Zarnathians could not anticipate the sheer scale of the attack, nor the coordination with which every movement was carried out. Humanity had come together as a single, relentless entity, and the Zarnathians, once sure of victory, found themselves surrounded, outmaneuvered, and overpowered. In the final hours of the battle, the once proud Zarnathian commanders, who had once scoffed at the thought of losing to humans, stared in horror at the screens before them. Reports flooded in of their ships falling from the sky, their ground forces decimated, and their strategic outposts overrun. It was not just the strength of the human forces that shocked them. It was the unyielding spirit that drove every man, woman, and child to fight with the tenacity of a species defending its very existence. In the end, the Zarnathians found themselves with no options left. Their forces, battered and broken, withdrew from Earth, their departure a grim admission of failure. They had come expecting a quick and easy conquest, but they left with the chilling knowledge that they had been bested not just by weaponry or tactics, but by a species that, under pressure, had evolved into something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. For the Zarnathians, retreat was the only choice. They abandoned their footholds, pulling back their remaining ships and soldiers, vowing never to underestimate humanity again. And as their vessels disappeared into the void of space, the humans who had fought with everything, they had stood victorious. The very definition of apex predators, defending their home with an unbreakable will and an unquenchable spirit. The lesson was clear. Earth was no place for invaders. Here lived a species that had been shaped by struggle, sharpened by resilience, and honed into a formidable force capable of surviving anything, adapting to any threat, and standing undefeated against even the most advanced foes. The Zarnathians left Earth knowing that they had not only failed, but had glimpsed the depths of human strength, a force that even the mightiest empire in the galaxy dared not face again. The Zarnathian command issued the order to retreat, a command that rippled through their ranks like a shockwave. Their once mighty forces had been battered and worn down, their ranks decimated by casualties, morale shattered. Ships that had once filled Earth's skies in a show of dominance now limped into orbit, engines damaged, hulls scarred from the relentless human assaults. Alien troops pulled back from cities and towns, abandoning outposts, fortifications, and weapons in their desperate rush to withdraw. Their retreat was more than a mere tactical decision. It was an admission of defeat, an acknowledgement that they could not break the humans who fought them with unyielding ferocity. The alien soldiers moved with a heaviness they had never known, casting fearful glances over their shoulders as they withdrew. They had learned the hard way that every mile they retreated was watched by humans lying in wait, observing each step. Despite their urgency, their departure was not met with a human pursuit or continued assault. Instead, humanity allowed them to leave, almost as though Earth had chosen to grant them a reprieve. But the aliens knew it was no mercy. It was a calculated message, an unspoken warning that they would be crushed completely if they ever dared to return. At the edge of the planet's atmosphere, the Zarnathian flagship received a transmission from Human Command. On their view screens appeared a simple message, but its meaning struck deeper than any weapon. Earth is defended. Do not return. The Zarnathians had come expecting to deliver such a message to Earth, a statement of conquest and dominance. Now, they were forced to accept it instead, sent back to their empire bearing a scar that would forever remind them of their encounter with this fiercely resilient species. As the alien fleet drifted further from Earth, alien commanders on the flagship stared at the blue and green planet on their monitors, silently contemplating the battle they had just lost. Among them was Commander Zalvora, a hardened officer who had been at the forefront of the invasion. In his eyes lingered disbelief, a feeling that Earth was more than just an unfortunate defeat. It was a turning point in the Zarnathian understanding of the galaxy itself. They had encountered countless species, conquered numerous worlds, and faced civilizations with advanced technologies, but never had they met a people like humanity. Humanity's strength was not rooted in superior technology or numbers. It was a kind of strength that defied categorization. As Zalvora thought back to the relentless human soldiers, the civilians who'd stood against them, and the terrifying ingenuity displayed in every aspect of their resistance, he realized that humanity's power was deeper and older, as if it had been forged by countless generations of struggle. Humans were not simply resilient, they were fiercely adaptable, and they could turn any challenge, any enemy, into a lesson, sharpening themselves with each encounter. They didn't just fight, they evolved, refined their tactics, and became something greater each time they faced an obstacle. Zalvora shared his reflections with the other commanders. They spoke in hushed voices about the humans they had seen, recalling the unbreakable spirit and predator instinct that defined the species. For the Zarnathians, this was no ordinary enemy. It was a force they could neither understand nor counter, a species that could make even the greatest empire in the galaxy fear for its survival. They now realized that humanity was not prey, as they'd thought. Humans were the apex predators of their world, creatures that dominated their environment and overcame any threat with a brutal, relentless intelligence. Aboard the fleet, alien soldiers, who had once scoffed at the thought of human resistance, now bore the marks of fear and awe. Whispers spread among them, retellings of encounters with humans who had fought past all exhaustion, who refused to surrender, who had wielded weapons made from scraps of alien tech to devastating effect. They spoke of humans who didn't flinch under fire, who seemed to draw strength from each loss, each moment of pain. These stories would become legends within their ranks, warnings passed down through the generations about the species they had underestimated. For the Zarnathian Empire, the retreat from Earth would change their approach to conquest forever. They would mark this defeat in their archives, a cautionary tale told to all future commanders, a reminder that humanity was a species that could not be conquered. Earth's image, its green forests, its sprawling oceans, its cities filled with people who fought with the spirit of ancient warriors, was etched into their minds, a symbol of the one world that had turned their unstoppable force back. As the last Zarnathian ship vanished into the blackness of space, humanity's message was already traveling across the galaxy, carried by those who had witnessed Earth's strength. Other alien civilizations, some of whom had previously viewed Earth as a curiosity or potential conquest, heard of the Zarnathians' defeat. Rumors spread across interstellar borders, tales of a species that had stood against an empire, that had outwitted, outlasted, and outfought one of the most powerful military forces known to the galaxy. Humanity's reputation was solidified, not as prey, nor as mere survivors, but as a civilization that would stop at nothing to defend its own. Back on Earth, the people who had fought and won returned to rebuild their cities, their homes, and their lives. Soldiers and civilians alike shared their stories, each remembering the battles they had fought, each understanding now what it meant to be a defender of Earth. They had proven not just to the aliens, but to themselves what they were capable of when united. From now on, they knew Earth was not just their home. It was a fortress, and they were its guardians. The scars of the invasion would remain, but so too would the lessons of their victory, the understanding that humanity, when tested, could meet any threat and turn back any foe. And out among the stars, civilizations who heard of humanity's triumph knew that Earth was a planet to be respected, that the people who lived there were fierce, clever, and unyielding. The Zarnathians had learned the hard way that humans were not a people to be subdued. They were defenders, apex predators of their world, with a fire that nothing, not even an empire, could extinguish. In this battle, humanity had not just defended itself. It had marked its place in the cosmos as a species of formidable resolve, one that would stand against any force that dared to challenge it. And as long as there were stars in the sky, the legend of Earth's defenders would remain, a story of a world that fought, won, and warned the galaxy that humanity would never be prey.